You'll often end up meeting people who give you the impression that they know a lot. Nobody knows a lot. Standard middle class sort of Bengali family. Nobody. In Bengali, we say this phrase "teen kuleke," which roughly translates into three extended sort of generations.
নমস্কার, আমি পবিশা চট্টোপাধ্যায়। আপনাদের সবাইকে স্বাগত পবিশাস জ্ঞানে। পবিশাস জ্ঞানে আমি বাঙালি ইউথদেরকে এন্টারপ্রেনিউরশিপ আর বিজনেস রিলেটেড মোটিভেশন দিয়ে থাকি। তাছাড়া বিজনেস ইভেন্টে কভার করে থাকি। যেমন আজকের বিজনেস ইভেন্টে আমরা এসেছি বিইতে, বেঙ্গলস এন্টারপ্রেনিউরস ইকোসিস্টেমের। আপনারা সবাই আসুন, আমরা দেখি ভিতরে কি হচ্ছে, পিচ কতগুলো হচ্ছে, কে কে গেস্ট এসেছে এবং গেস্টরা বিজনেস সম্বন্ধে, এন্টারপ্রেনিউরশিপ সম্বন্ধে, ইনভেস্টমেন্ট সম্বন্ধে কি বলছে। আর তাছাড়া এরপর থেকে আপনারা পবিশাস জ্ঞান বাংলাতে ছাড়া হিন্দি আর ইংলিশও পাবেন। তাহলে আমরা কি ভিতরে চলি, আসুন।
We have a very special guest today who has actually flown in from Atlanta, United States. So I'll just give a small background about him. He passed out of South Point in 1982, IIT Kharagpur, MS and PhD from the US. He started a company in the US named Chutney Technologies, which is sold off to Cisco in 2005 for $100 million, right? In 2005, and then he did quite a few more. His main company called Mobilewalla is currently based out of Calcutta, Singapore, and Atlanta, and he has been investing heavily into different stuff. So we met Swagato. So Swagato is the one who's running Fit Green, and he has invested and given his full network, power, office, everything. So he's also looking forward to mentor, guide, and perhaps invest later. So that is why we have sir with us today, Mr. Anindya Datta. So should be Dr. Anindya Datta. He's a PhD. Sir, I'd like to welcome you, sir.
Sharing stories is again, I do not know the types of guests who come here. I like to listen more than I speak. So I don't think the more comfortable for me in a session where yes, I'll tell you who I am and sort of as Srinjoy indicated or told me, a little bit of my journey. But what might be most interesting is once I do that, and I want to do that very quickly, right? 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I would love to hear from you. And before I start, when I was doing a session at a college called IEM. I was in Yale Business School a couple of weeks ago. IEM, I always say that in this kind of environments, I learn more than I actually teach. Many of the people that I end up working with have met in events like this. Right? I mean, Shomita, who you just heard from, she runs all. She only said for Fit Green, but in reality, she runs all of Asian revenue for Mobilewalla. And makes enormous amounts of money in the process, but let's not go there. And I met her very accidentally in something like this, and now she's so much more interesting for me is less speaking about myself and learning more about you. So let's do that. And I also always say there is not a lot that I know, right? You'll often end up meeting people who give you the impression that they know a lot. Nobody knows a lot. Right? I mean, there are infinite number of situations you can face in life. I've faced maybe 152, but I have not faced like 3 zillion, 4 quadrillion. So, but I've made a few mistakes, and if those mistakes help people not make them again, we can do that. So anyway, so with that thing, let me give you a very short background on myself. I grew up in Kolkata. We used to live in Baliganj. And, standard middle class sort of Bengali family. Nobody. In Bengali, we say this phrase "teen kuleke," right, which roughly translates into three extended sort of generations. Nobody had ever done anything related to business, right? So my aunts, uncles used to teach in colleges or work in companies and so on. So I grew up in that kind of environment. I went to South Point School. From South Point, I went to Kharagpur, and then after Kharagpur, I left for the States to go to grad school. I went to grad school at a university close to Washington, D.C. called University of Maryland. And then once I finished my master's and PhD, I became a very young, I did a PhD when I was 28 years old. And I became a very young professor at a university called Georgia Institute of Technology in Georgia Tech. And then, I was so young at that time that my grad students were older than me. So, so I was at Tech, and the other sort of fun fact or interesting thing is, so I did my PhD in the 1990s, right? When many of you here were not even born, I'm sure. And when I went to Georgia Tech, it was almost 2000, but not quite in 1998. My PhD and I did work for a few years as an actual scientist because I was a professor and I had to write papers and so on. It was in AI. I used to teach both the grad and the undergrad AI course at Georgia Tech, right? And working in AI in the 1990s and early 2000s was very strange because everybody else in the computer science department would make fun of us, right? The database people, the systems people, the computer vision people. They used to say that nothing ever is going to happen. And nothing did for a long time. It was just a very theoretical science. But anyway, I say that because, of course, things have changed now, right? So all those people that made fun of me, I make fun of them now. But anyway, so I was in AI and I went to Tech and a couple of years. So I started a lab. I raised some money, which is in the United States, when you are a faculty member, you have to raise money to do research and hire students and so on. So I got a grant, I started a lab. And then in the year 2000 in my lab, quite accidentally, a gentleman showed up. I don't know how many of you know his name. His name is Vinod Khosla. Do you?
Yes. Yeah, we know.
So Vinod showed up in my lab. And I at that time really I didn't know who he was other than we used to use Sun computers. Most of you are too young to know Sun computers, but we used to use Sun workstations. And he was the founding CEO of Sun, right? And at that time he was working at a venture firm out of Palo Alto in California called Planet Cortex. Now he has his own fund, also. At that time he was a partner at KP. And he showed up and he saw what I won't bore you with what we were working on. It had to do with AI and data and other boring stuff. But he saw what we were working on and then told me, look, you need to start a company. And in the year 2000, Google was not yet public. Really the only company that so we know tech startups a lot now. A lot of people I heard here were talking about building tech startups. And in those times, it was not that common. Especially if you lived in California, maybe it was, but I was living in Atlanta, it was not that common. When I told my parents that, hey, this dude showed up and he's asking me to start a company, my mother said, don't ever talk to him again. I mean, this is like, son, got rank in Madhyamik, rank holder in higher secondary, rank in, think of starting a company called Chutney. My mother was sick for like 2 weeks. But Vinod was very persistent, and I don't know what possessed me, but I left Georgia Tech and I started this company called Chutney Technologies, which was based on the work that I and 3 of my PhD students were doing at that time. And that was I was effectively 30 years old, and since then I've never been anything but a CEO of start. Yes.
How you came up with the name Chutney and why?
Yeah, the way we came up with the name Chutney was, again, I don't want to quote the thing with what we were doing, but what we were doing at that time, those of you, again, you guys are so young, most of you are. So, if you know sort of how the internet evolved, so, or at least most of you will know that in the beginning, all content on the internet or the World Wide Web was static. So you went somewhere, you clicked on a link, and the HTML that got rendered on your browser already existed as HTML in some server. And those bits just got sent to you. So things were like super quick. So in around 2000, a language called Java evolved, right? And one of the main reasons for Java evolving was people said that, look, if all content in websites is static, we can't really do fun stuff in it, right? So websites became what is known as dynamic, right? Which is that if you click the link, instead of HTML sent to you directly, actually a program would run in the back end and generate the HTML that was sent to you. So it was very cool because then you can do all kinds of things and so on, and like two different people thinking could get two different kinds of content. But websites became very slow, very, very slow. And the answer to your question is, so we were doing something that made these dynamics websites faster using AI. And the idea was that, what does Chutney do? And we went through names like Chutney and Salsa and all of these things. These are not food by itself, but they make other food better. Right? So an essential condiment for websites. That was the idea. So we I left tech and I moved to the Bay Area, and then we built Chutney and you can imagine I knew nothing about building companies, but we hired very good people, and in spite of all my efforts, I couldn't destroy the company. We grew, and then in 2005, because we had a very big, and you guys know of a company called Cisco Systems, right? They make networking. So we did a big partnership with Cisco Systems. They were, again, let's not go into detail. The bottom line is we did a big partnership with Cisco Systems, and then one day some execs from Cisco showed up at my office and said, "Hey, we want to buy you." And I said, okay. And then they gave us an offer, and the amount of money that they showed was so incredible. It is now not maybe so much. Those days it seemed such an enormous amount to me that I went to my board and said, and we said yes, and then Cisco bought us, and one of my conditions of buying was that I had to stay in Cisco for 365 days. It's called a year lockup. It's called a lockup, and I had a 1 year lockup. So on the 366th day I left, and then started something else, which was called Walking Stick, which was a huge failure. And because I had made some money, I put a lot of my own money into this company, and I lost it all. And again, let's not go into why it failed, but it failed. After 2 years, we shut it down after burning through a ton of money. And then I didn't do anything for a while. My daughter was born while I was doing Chutney, and for the first 5 or 6 years of her life, I spent no time with her at all. So basically, what I did was I obsessively spent time with my daughter for a few years, and then felt creatively frustrated and did this and did that, and I won't bore you through all the detail, but eventually started this company that is called Mobilewalla, which I'm doing now, and that's me. But I like to think that that I like music, and I like food, and I like movies, and on different days I think I'm going to make a movie. I'll like learn to play the piano because I love the piano and play music, and I end up doing nothing. But my love for food and Shomita's insistence on doing something with me. So we are doing FitGreen, and we have put in what I think is quite a bit of money, and it's going to open tomorrow. food business is very hard. In India, 100 food businesses that start, 99 fail within 1 year. Right? So I go into this knowing that this is an extraordinarily low success. Yeah, and the idea is that can you do things where your odds of success go up from 1% to 2%. So hopefully we are doing that, and only time will tell. That's my story.
Sir, what is Mobilewalla?
Oh, what is Mobilewalla into? How many of you here understand AI relatively well? Okay. So what Mobilewalla does is very boring, which is why I didn't say. So let me try to say it at least somewhat So all AI is about predicting, right? Any AI technique actually ends up predicting something, right? And of course, these days with ChatGPT and everything, everybody thinks AI means generative AI. I mean, nothing could be. I used to teach AI. Right? Nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, generative AI is like a tiny part of AI, but regardless of what AI you do, it's all about predicting things. And the way AI predicts is, some sort of a learning technique gets trained on some data, and it learns patterns, right? So if I wanted to predict how much rainfall is going to happen in Kolkata this year, I will basically take a technique that can learn and feed the data on last 50 years of rainfall in Kolkata and others, and we'll see patterns and say. So there was a long time when it was thought that to do better AI, you have to build better techniques. So you have machine learning, neural networks, and deep learning, and GABA, and like people are working on can I build a more sophisticated technique for learning? So these days the thinking has totally changed. Now the general consensus is to build better AI, you have to have better data. If you want to build a system that can look at pictures of animals and identify cats, the best way to do that is to train it on zillions and trillions of images of cats. So the better the data, or a simple technique trained on better data will always beat a very successful technique trained on. So the data that trains and feeds AI models are known as features. Some of you may have heard the term features. So Mobilewalla sells features that drives AI models for our clients, right? So the 3 billion people in the world who don't have credit scores still want loans. So when they go to Paytm loans, right? And when you go ask loan from them, they don't know what your credit score is. So how do they know whether to return the loan or not? Right? So they use AI to build risk decision models. Those AI models use our data. So we tell them that's what Mobilewalla does. It builds data for AI. Of course, you can raise many questions.
It is out of the topic, but your first venture was very successful. Your second was whatever you have
very unsuccessful.
All your money you drained. And third, you were there out of the for 5-6 years. You were with the family, and then you were into the Mobilewalla. And the last one, the food business, as far as I know, it is a 5 to 6%. But you have told 1 to 2%, 3% is the success rate of the success. Now I'm trying to link myself with you. Even though knowing that 1 to 2%, which I know is 5 to 6%, the success rate in the food business, still you have invested. My question is why, knowing that 1 and 2 is very difficult, it doesn't come to your in the system. Any people who does business, even the top companies, they hire McKinsey, BCG, all the big companies. Now, even though the Tatas, builders, Ambanis, all the big honchos, whenever they do any kind of business, before going maybe 6 years, 5 years, 1 year down the line, they do research, they give people to the money, and after that, when that comes out, then also it is the success rate is very less. After doing all the McKinsey, BCG, all the big companies, still knowing that you are into the successful people, throughout your whole career is a very bright curve, still you have invested. The idea is why you have knowing that you have invested that. I'm sorry to ask, but I'm trying to connect myself with you before whatever money I have hard-earned money, whenever I do, I also have something money in my belly to do something in my own Calcutta. But always, whenever I do these all statistics, I feel the failure rate is more than the success rate.
It's a very. So I will give you a deeply personal answer, right? I'll honestly answer to you why I do the things I do, right? Which might not apply to people, but it's a very personal answer. So one of the things about growing up, getting older, I think one of the most profoundly important things is to know yourself, right? Self-awareness. So one of the pieces of self-awareness that I have had about myself is that I'm an inveterate risk taker. I mean, again, I'm going to go completely off topic, right? So for instance, as Shomita knows, I love to gamble. I go into casinos and I play blackjack, right? Knowing that the casino odds are better than mine. Now I think I'm smart and I construct all kinds of reasons in myself saying I count cards and blah blah and so on and so forth. But at the end, your personality determines a lot of things that you do. So that's one reason. And in my mind, most things you do in life have an infinitesimally small chance of success, right? 1% is a million times more than 0.00001%, right? So that's one. The second thing is, I like doing hard things. Easy things are not fun. And as I've gotten older, harder things have become even. I like to do difficult things, right? So I'm a gambler. I like doing difficult things, and I like to work with people who I like, right? Like Shomita, like a couple of others, right? So all these three things come together in Fitri. It's extraordinarily hard. It's basically a gamble. But instead of going to a casino, I'm just gambling my money some other things. And I get to work with people who I love. So that's
Microphone.
Not really, Arun. I have met him. He was the CEO when things got sold. We were a fairly small part of a kind of startup division for Cisco at one time. So yes, I've met him in meetings when the day the acquisition got done, he came and shook my hand. But I would be lying to you if I told you that I've worked with him.
Just to presume his battery that making things work, you wanted to ask the learners of even.
So I do not. I would, many people will probably tell you they have worked with. He works with very few. Right? I worked with somebody who was very close to him. I don't know if you guys have heard her name, Gyannn. She was the CTO of Cisco, and she was John Chambers' right-hand person. So I worked very closely with her. Right? Not with John. I did not work very closely with him. And I got really no learnings from Cisco because I'll tell you what happened. They bought us. I had to be there for 365 days. And otherwise, my investors, nobody would get their money. Right? I mean, the thing was trounced out so much like day one and so much. It depended upon if the 15 key engineers were identified, if any of them left, you would get less money. And really, keeping me was to make sure that those people stayed, right? So honestly, what I did, Arun, was I used to go to the Santa Clara office. In the morning, I would go talk to my people and just tell them, hey, whenever I see somebody's getting antsy, they want to go somewhere, I say, no, stay for 3 more months, 5 more months, 6 more months. And in the afternoon, I would go and try to raise money for my next venture. That's all I did. I did nothing. Yeah, I did a few meetings, so engineers. So at that time, my role is engineers working with their engineers, innovating a solution. So honestly, I didn't do. But Cisco at that time was such an insanely, like you said, acquisitive company. So many exciting things were going on. So I became friends with a few Cisco guys. And I learned a lot from them. But the company overall, and this is how most CEOs who get acquired. There's some CEOs who stay on, but that's honestly what I do. I mean, again, that's the honest answer.
My follow-up question is, you also scaled up the
Yeah, so Vinod I work with very closely. Yes.
You may not know, but that guy is a something you are doing.
He is truly something. So
Really tried justifying
actually, so he started ISB, right? He was ISB, and then he looked at me both in ISB. So I can do that. But he is. Look, we have a little WhatsApp group called Vinod Khosla CEOs, VKC, and it's become a very. So I was his sixth investee. I was the sixth person Vinod Khosla invested in, and I was the first software investor because most of his investments are hardware. So it's nothing. I mean, he's done 1,000 investments. Even most of Vinod Khosla investments are also saved. So we have this group, and Venkat and all that, are in that group. And Vinod Khosla was a very difficult person to work with. I mean, he was insanely intelligent and bright, but he had that attention span of my 5-year-old daughter. It was very difficult. Like Vinod, I think would be a very bad CEO because he could not read a balance sheet for like half hour and figure out what's wrong with it. I mean, he was like, he's a new thing junkie, right? It's always like, what's new? I mean, you're talking about Orissa, when after Chutney had sold, he called me up one day and he said that I'm very interested in clean fuel, which of course is. And there have been lots and lots of sort of things of clean fuel. He said, I want to build basically ethanol powered cars, which has now been proven not workable, but I'm talking about in like 2007, 2008. And he said, I want to make ethanol from pine bark, the bark of the pine tree. I want to make it. He had met some chemistry professor at MIT or something who said he had some process for. So, and the reason he was calling me up is because, Atlanta is in the state of Georgia in the United States, and Georgia has a lot of pine trees. So he wanted to buy a bunch of pine trees. It's crazy. So it's very unproven technology. Very, his thing was he always wants to. He used the baseball analogy. I'll give you the corresponding cricket analogy. If you're a batsman, he only wanted to hit sixes. He didn't want to take singles, not doubles. He just wants to hit sixes. Now, he knew that if you just want to hit sixes, you might get out, but that's fine. But I just want to swing for the fences. Right? So I remember arranging a meeting between him and the then governor of Georgia, where he took me and he ended up buying. He started a company. You can look it up with this professor called Range Fuels, and he bought 200 acres of land with pine trees, some ungodly number of pine trees, and he probably sunk $700-800 million of planet partners in it. A flaming failure. Nothing came out. Again, I don't know the full things, but I don't think they would produce ethanol at scale. Ethanol as a fuel didn't take off. But I think it captured the essence of Vinod Khosla in the sense of, again, if you think I'm a gambler, Vinod is a super mega zillion gambler, right? I mean, and he had the ability to spend billions of dollars because he was sitting on one of the, perhaps at that time, maybe not now, but at that time, the bluest of blue chip venture fund in the world. Again, Vinod Khosla's story. So Shomita lives in Singapore. And the reason she lives in Singapore, when I met her was in Singapore, Mobilewalla has a large office in Singapore. Why does Mobilewalla have a large office in Singapore? Because one of the limited partners, the people that invest in the fund, of the Climate Practice Fund that funded Mobilewalla, was Temasek. You guys, Temasek, right? Singapore Sovereign Fund. So the Temasek CEO at that time would come to Palo Alto twice a year to do the LP meetings. And of course, Vinod was the star. And Vinod would introduce you to all his investees. And I became quite close. I mean, he became like an uncle to me. Right? I mean, I was 32, he was 70, and he became like an uncle, right? And he would tell me, hey, once you do this, you must come do something in Singapore. So, but the point I'm making is that once you have resources, with Temasek, it's like a endless source of money, right? I mean, it's like 50% of Singapore government earnings are going into that. So, with that, we know that access to literally hundreds of billions of dollars. Right? So imagine I can take risks with some small amount of money, but this is a guy who can risk tens of billions of dollars in crazy stuff, and he did that. And so it's very, very unique individual. So I learned I learned risk, some degrees of risk taking from him. Many of the ways show me, she knows me very well. The way I speak, I'm sure has shades of how Vinod used to speak in board meetings. And hey, it was an amazing experience. Not always good, but very memorable.
So last question from my side. My question is of accumulating of my own startup and the other industry of my own So I mean, we basically manage almost 40 years of settlement scopes, right? I've been doing this for the last 2 years. And I'm really pretty well experienced. And we can go on and do some further analysis. So basically what completed to invest in a business, right? 99% of the things we do in
So I was just saying, so one of the things, and again, you've forgotten more about PSR than I know. I mean, so again, yes, I may have lived in the world a bit longer than you, but in PSR, you're my daddy. So again, I did that simply because I like to build businesses that scale. For a long time, all the businesses I've built so far have been selling things to businesses. So I wanted to sell things to people. I want to build something at scale. And when you want to build something at scale, selling things to people, India is a very natural place. Of course, India is not India. And and at the end, what I built or own is something that I believe. I mean, I play a lot of sports, and I play. Anyway, let's say, but I play a lot of sports, and as I've gotten older, I've found that playing sports with people who are much younger than me, playing squash with somebody who's 30 years younger than me. So as I saw that even my skills were good, but just my lungs and my heart were sort of letting me down. So how does one sort of guard against that? I started eating well. I found that eating, what you eat is probably the best predictor of how you're going to feel the next day. And then there's a certain way I eat. I eat a lot, and it's not like I'm eating boiled meat and boiled fish and boiled veg. I like to eat enough protein. I like to not have more than. Basically, I eat a very macro balanced meal. Right? I mean, I eat everything. So that's something. It was not just a random QSR, but somewhere where I would eat in Kota, right? And it's at the end it's a gamble. But gamble on something I love and doing with people I love. So it's a gamble that if it fails, it would have felt good before failing.
I was going to Mobilewalla's website and it was saying that the predictive modeling of consumer insights. So suppose like I'm a consumer, I went to a shopping mall. My budget is 800 rupees. I went to the food court of this mall. So I'm going towards KFC. I just changed my mind. I want to go for the biryani. So this kind of change, like my hunger, whatever is going in my mind, my movement, how will AI predict that?
AI, I don't think can quite, or I'm not sure that it will be used. Or let's say that there is some magic that can predict your movement. Right? But I don't think that prediction is going to be that valuable. Like if you're walking towards KFC, the fact that you will turn towards the biryani store, even if I could predict that, I don't think the biryani store has enough time to do something with it. But what AI
Maybe some promotions, maybe some discounts that's making a change in my mind.
in the 10 seconds it takes you from it. That's hard. And it has to make in those 10 seconds. You have to be watching your phone in those 10 seconds.
Yes.
Those are, but what can happen is that even before you walk into the mall,
Yes.
or let me put it this way, that you are walking towards KFC and turn towards biryani. But let's say you did not, but you did not turn towards the frozen yogurts.
Yes.
So what is possible is that way before you entered the mall, AI could have predicted that this woman is interested in KFC and biryani and something, and not interested in frozen yogurt. So coupons for all three could have been sent to you before you even ended up walking into the mall. Knowing that if you went to the food court, you would, and of course, they would know you go to the food court because Mobilewalla does, because we know what comes up with your phone, and we know that we see you in this food court 3 times a week. So that can be done.
But also, like, there's a difference between, like emotional and mental harm. So, in that case, how can we, like, no matter how much survey, no matter how much interview we do in the market, we cannot understand that what emotions and how much change in the frequency of change in the emotions are there in that impact.
But it's at the end, it becomes a numbers game. Right? So, nothing is for sure. Just because I send you those 3 coupons doesn't mean you will even go to the mall. Or if you went to the mall, you will go to the food court. Or if you go to the food court, there is no guarantee that all of a sudden you won't go somewhere else. But the theory would say that if I did this prediction over 10 million people, and I sent all 10 million of them coupons for what I believe that they would go, some number of them, 2%, 3%, 4% of them, would behave that I think they will. And that itself is a win. So it's a probabilistic uncertainty, management of uncertainty. And just doing slightly better than doing nothing at all.
So guys, the question is, had he been 25 or 30 years old, what you would have advised him? I know it's a very tough question.
No, so the question really is not at 25, 30 years old, I knew nothing. Right? The question is, knowing what I know now, if you can put that epistemology in my head when I'm 25, what would I be telling myself? Look, the biggest I have come to believe that your tendencies, your proclivities, your foundational impulses, right, are hugely impactful on what you end up doing. I mean, regardless of, I can give myself advice many times I've given that, hey, don't even walk into another casino again, but show me the nose. If you take me to Vegas, I will. I mean, regardless of what. But probably what I'll say is that, but I like not to make the same mistake many times. So, and I've made a whole bunch of mistakes in my personal life, in my professional life. And people like me, my personal and professional life intersect a lot, right? Because this is all I've done. So most of the people who are close to me are coming out of my people that I've worked with. I probably would not make a bunch of mistakes. Now, what are the top 3 mistakes, right? This is a hard question because there's so many. I would spend money more carefully. one of the biggest things I've learned about running a business is the hardest thing is to run out of money. So I would definitely not run out of money, or I would tell myself that regardless of what you do, make sure that you have, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months of runway. This is probably the most fundamental reason why businesses fail. Right? I mean, you guys know that you start doing something, you'll never end up doing it. You change, you do something else. Right? The people who can do that is because they had the runway, they had the cash, they had the, they had the room to do that. Right? So I would ask myself to give that room or do whatever I do. That's one. Second is I've become much better at hiring people. Most of the times, a lot of the times that the bad things have happened is because I got the wrong people to do those things. Because at the end, you learn sort of, to me, entrepreneurship is a very humbling thing. Every day I know that I don't know very much. Like for instance, Arun knows way more about your stuff than I do. I know this for a fact, doing what you do. So I become, again, those are things probably I do not want to say in this group. I mean, there's 3-4 things that if I find in a person, I don't hire that person. Okay. They are not bad things. They're just, if you guys understand the word heuristics. So there are certain heuristics that I've learned through which I can judge people's effectiveness. I judge people's effectiveness in doing certain things. Shomita knows what I'm talking about because I was talking to her about some people that we have in FitGreen who I was telling her that, hey, might not be the right person for the job, right? And then she asked why, and I said, this is why. Yeah, those things are not paid. It's not like, oh, this person is stealing money or this or that and so on, right? So I would definitely, those are probably the 2 most important things about what I'd be telling myself, that spend money wisely or spend way less than you want to spend. And B, I would tell myself, if I knew what I knew now when I was 25, I think I could have sold chutney for $500 million. Right? I mean, the valuation would have been significantly higher because we did so many stupid things. So those are the 2 probably most important things. I don't know. Is that? I mean, we have to do the 1 to the power of 1 plus n million. So, but I spent 50% of my money in starting walking stick, which I lost in the next 3 years.
So my question is, you've been a very high achiever from very start. You went to Kharagpur, then Georgia Tech, and आप उस place में थे, like Palo Alto में, when AI was getting started, विनोद खोसला के साथ आपके connections. So how you took decisions? Like मैं जानना चाहता हूँ how you take decisions about choosing something. Why chutney? आप ऐसी जगह पे थे where ideas से आपका mind भरा हुआ है. You have gone to anything. So that I'm trying to understand. I know you like to do hard things. आपको थोड़ा gamble भी करना पसंद है. But still, like, how you come to a decision कि okay, now I'll finally do this, और बाकी सभी distractions you just close your head off.
Some of these questions you should be asking her also, right? She's look. I mean, I have been doing this shit for a long time. And it is my thing that I've been beaten down so many times, I mean, you think here, I smile and I look like a nice guy, but after you beat somebody with a whip like 1,000 times, that work. But somebody like her is a first-time entrepreneur, right? Why did she choose to she's putting her own money. No, she makes a lot of money. That's a good thing. But she's putting her own money. Why did she choose to do that? Right? How? I think her answers would be more relatable to you than mine. Look, and again, so because of primarily luck and the journey that I've followed, I have the luxury to make mistakes. If I make a mistake, my family can still eat, right? So that's a very strong luxury to have, and I did not always have that luxury, right? I still remember. I'll tell you a story when I was doing. In fact, this is something I tell everyone. That fine, you're an entrepreneur, but until you face the following situation, you're not really an entrepreneur. Friday is your payroll, and your payroll is, let's say, take a number, not large, but you're doing $150,000. You need $150,000 on Friday to pay your. On Wednesday, you have $2.30 in the bank. Until you face this situation, for me, I would have diarrhea. The stress, and there's one person whose wife is having a baby. How can I make health insurance, company share of health insurance payments, right? So there was a time when at that time, quite honestly, I was not focused on almost anything else other than how do I get to the next day, right? So these days are a little bit different. I still feel stress because the scale of problems have grown bigger, right? Now, payroll is like $1 million, right? But how I choose, I'm not sure. I'd be lying to you to say that I have but I have ideas every day when I'm taking a shower. I have like 5 ideas. Yeah. So, but I know that like 4 of them are immediately rejectable because they're just BS, right? Even God couldn't make those ideas happen, and I'm not God, right? So, but I do things. In many ways, I need to do things to feel alive, right? I mean, if I don't do anything, I get bored, right? I mean, how long can you watch Netflix? So at some point, I get to levels of boredom where I say that, let's pick the least shitty idea, but I mean, I like to do things at scale. I like to. But for instance, I want to make a movie. I love movies. Right? And I love novels. I read. I like crime novels. So I want to make crime movies. But this is something that is doable, right? I mean, you can hire people, but I've never done it. So you can ask me, why did you not make a movie and do Fit3? Probably because Fit3 is a scalable business, movie is not. So that's the most honest answer I can give.
It's an interesting question. I'm guessing I'm speaking on behalf of everyone. So, when we basically paid the labor arbitrage rate for the last 30 years, almost 25, 26 years, right? So now, the time is such that Mr. 83 years old, who is becoming how do I explain that? The largest wealth creator for the richest guy in the planet, and on a parallel, another company which started the IT services in India is squandering 80,000 crores of 5 countries of India. I mean, what a travesty!
I mean, I agree with you that the contrast is very stark, very stark. But what's the question? I mean, the reason the 83-year-old is because his company had this 25%, 26% things. Look, I mean, the rich people, the traditionally wealthy people in India, right? The Ambanis, the Adanis, the usual suspects. At least this generation are very different than, let's say, Larry Ellison or these guys, right? I mean, so I am more, from an emotional, psychological, foundational impulse perspective. I think I'm more like Musk and Ellison. I take risks, right? I take risks without having any. But this generation of the wealthy in India, are not quite that. Right? And, one generation, 2 generations before risk was taken. But now, in places like India, I feel the situation is kind of, you can manipulate the system in ways that it's hard to do elsewhere. And the thing of your buying back shares, I saw that, right? I saw that. But why do you think that? I think they did that because they were desperate to. That company has not had a shares going down this fast for, and that was the CEO felt that my fiduciary responsibility to my shareholders, I'm failing in that because I'm reducing their wealth. And this is like a desperate thing but yeah, it was definitely not a listing. He could have said that let me go back. In his shoes, I would think that it's also a very interesting question. Srinjoy took me to this party where people were dancing, and I was jet lagged on Thursday. Tuesday. On Tuesday, yes, and I met a few entrepreneurs, and they were all telling me. Interestingly, two of them told me that yeah, it's good. I've been doing this company for 22 years. Revenue is in dollar terms $1.2 million. And I said, it's good, but why not grow faster and this that? So, and to both of them I said, why don't you think of inorganic growth, right? When you are $2 billion companies and you can only do so much, why don't you get, I was kidding. Maybe, there would be 100 reasons why they should not come together. But why don't you ask the question, why can't we come together with a $2 million company? Got some costs, and immediately you have more scale and you can do more things, right? Here, people don't think that way. Or the CEO who did share buyback, he didn't say that, if you look at their balance sheet, they have a ton of cash. Yeah, so he could have said that, let me take 2% of this and then buy a company from somewhere. And then maybe that can, but that's not how people think here. So it's when do you see the Ambanis and the Adanis really doing M&A? I mean, they do, but they'll buy each of their companies. Real forward-looking innovation that M&A just doesn't happen.
Don't you think they are working on the longer term play foundations sometimes on this conversation?
Now we are getting into political, yes, I have strong views on that. I'm not sure how much.
I'm not going to get to every day, right? So,
Yeah, because it's come all the way, so it makes a lot of sense.
Look, I mean,
generally, I never ask questions. I now allow everyone else, but today is my
But I am. Let me ask you a question this way: that I'm super, and I hope Shobita I'm super thrilled to. I could not imagine that a group like this exists in Kolkata, right? And you would think, Arun, that out of this group there are one or two people that are going to build the kind of companies that should be built. That is the hope, right? That is the hope. But now it doesn't exist. I mean, our traditional the corporations that are the sources of wealth or our wealthiest are not the same as a Facebook, right? I mean, if you think of Zuckerberg, he's hiring people for 10 million bucks. That's also crazy, and I think a very wrong strategy. But it's like extreme risk-taking, extreme, right? I mean, that also I don't know. But you'd hope that at least one or two of people from here would build a company that is 1 million times larger than either. I mean, that's the only way we will.
It's a great privilege to talk to you, sir. So my question is that you had a great experience in AI and you are a man of AI. So my question is, if from the group, if someone want to start something in AI, so what should we choose and what is the upcoming niche or category that we should do?
That is a very, AI is so broad, right? AI is so broad. There's so many things to choose. So, no, I can tell you what not to choose. Don't build another LLM. That is dumb. Right? Horizontal AI is dumb. Right? So, do vertical AI. Apply AI to telecom. Apply AI to manufacturing. Apply AI to fashion. Apply AI to how to help dogs apply AI, do that. Don't go build another LLM. I mean, that's not. I don't think that's very useful. But it's so. I think there can be so much done in AI. I'm not even going to claim that I can tell you 5 years from now what's going to be.
You can just tell some category or for Indian market.
Vertical AI, right? Vertical AI would be So I'm thinking of applying AI to Fitri. I mean, how if you have limited money, right? I mean, what products do you build? We started Fitri with like a zillion products. It's quick experimentation. Right? The idea is within 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you know what people are having, and you cut down, you skinny down, right? You improve your unit economics, and we'll do it using AI.
Fitri can be focused for the gym also. Yoga Bar, there are a brand called Yoga Bar.
Yeah.
So they focus for gym.
Fitri is focused on gym. So or not people that the fitness segment would be a very. But I don't want to sell Fitri. Then I look cheap. I want to look good. Just kidding. I mean, Fitri is if you're into fitness, of course, Fitri is very. But it's very hard to answer what I don't want to send you in the wrong direction either, right? I mean, I just don't know. But I think vertical AI applied to verticals is going to be the thing that will happen. And horizontal AI, like building platforms, is going to be hard.
How about the hold and the showcase strategy? AI is doing. But data management, there's so much of structured data, unstructured data moving on. Someone can manage it. I think at the end of the day, data is like gold. And data will be covered in data center. Out of that data, 89% will grab data. So why not like part data that is put into the data center to eventually decide?
I mean, people like Databricks and Snowflake and all that. They would tell you that they would love you. They would say this is the.
You don't have any event of your fractal, which is basically an AI service.
Fractal is or Mu Sigma. Those are, they'll say we are AI companies, but really they're not, right? We definitely, again, it's a risk-taking thing, right? I mean, no, but show me that's, I think, I think that's unfair to say because both Mu Sigma and Fractal are getting money from the US, they're big businesses in the US. No, but that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But it's a safer business to build because you can get to profitability quickly. Right? The whole thing of let me product businesses inherently I think are riskier than service businesses. But the precise thing, you should be you and enjoy, and I would love to help, but here I'm not. We really need, and again, it's just not going to, I can say like 20 of the people here, that's just not going to happen. That's not how it happens. Right? 1 or 2 from here should become really, really big. Like you should build the biggest fashion business that exists in the world. No, I don't mean, I'm just taking it as an example, right? Yeah, so unless that happens, this situation will not change. So
guys, this is the last question. Sir is again coming to our Tuesday meet at Pabisha, 6 p.m. onwards. All are welcome. That space, that has also another 100 people space. So you can come and chill with him.
So
thank you.
I'm so impressed with you. I'm doing everything Srinjoy. In 7 days, I'm going like 5. Everyone Srinjoy is unbelievable. Yes.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Shashwat Mukherjee. Good evening, sir, and everybody. It's a real privilege to be a part of this meet today. Sir, I have a very simple question. Basically, a very layman's question. In a country like India, where we have almost 70,000 startups which come up in India every year. That's as per the latest statistics that we talk about. Okay? However, sir, the observation is only 2 to 3% of the startup they actually exist in business after 3 years, right? So what will be knowing you as a sea of knowledge in terms of entrepreneurship. I'd just like to take, or rather, would love to know your inputs towards those entrepreneurs who start their business, with a lot of energy, enthusiasm, but unfortunately, if you talk about sustainability, after 3 years, there's a breakdown. So that's exactly, I would like to know your key message to those entrepreneurs who are really starting business. 70,000 startup in India in a year, but only 2 to 3% exist. So that's what I would like to know, sir. Thank you.
So is that, again, I've not kept up, but that should be, isn't that the case everywhere? I would think so. I mean, I think in the US, it's or in Israel, in the tradition. I don't know. In general, it's. But I tell you one big difference. In India, a lot of I have raised a bunch of money from Indian investors as well. So one of the things in India is that startups in India have this weird, I don't know what to call it, weird sort of glamour halo that it does not, let's say, in US, right? Especially, I went to Bangalore and went to this VC and raised money. That itself is considered a success. Right? I find that's a very sort of self-defeating way to approach a startup. Right? In fact, for me now, the most successful way to build a startup is to not raise any money at all. Because, so that's a difference in India. I don't know if that makes, maybe what that causes is sort of entrepreneurs who are really not driven to build, but driven to sort of, be glamorous, or the goal is to raise money. This I don't understand. I mean, and maybe that leads to sort of unmotivated entrepreneurs and maybe more failure. I mean, I don't know that I'm speculating, but failure rates in startups are very high. I have failed big, so I cannot claim to be immune to that either. But people who truly want to build, for me, like a family, I don't think if you put me to work in a company, I can't. I mean, you could give me $10 million, but I would, in 3 days, I would feel like I would agree, right? I mean, it's a culture thing. It's a headspace thing, right? So people that have that headspace, I think, will be driven to build regardless of what happens, and that's basically what a culture we should be looking to build.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, sir, for all of your time. May I request all of you to please give a standing ovation to sir and a big round of applause. For me to again one person who did not tell me sector 5 থেকে এই হাওড়া আসতে হবে. He did not question me. He did not tell me. Just location হলো যেখানে আসতে বলবে চলে আসবো. So guys, this is the type of commitment that is needed, and thank you so much, sir, for all your time and effort.
নমস্কার, আপনাদের এই ভিডিওটি কেমন লাগলো অবশ্যই জানাবেন। অবশ্যই লাইক, শেয়ার এবং সাবস্ক্রাইব করে দেন এবং ফলো করে দেবেন, এবং নিজেদের যত ফ্রেন্ডস অ্যান্ড রিলেটিভস আছে তাদেরকে বলবেন, যারা ব্যবসা করতে চায় তাদেরকে অবশ্যই জানাবেন। কোনো ব্যবসার জন্য যেন আমরা আবার উদ্যোগী হই, ব্যবসা করি, সেটা সব থেকে বড় কথা। আমরা আছি ব্রিটিশটা। আজকের মতো চলি।